Hey, well, welcome back to another episode of the Grace Team Leadership Podcast. My name is Tyler, and I'm one of the pastors here at Northlands Church. This podcast, it is dedicated to the men and women here at Northlands that are our champions. They're the Grace Team leaders. They serve in various teams throughout the life of the church, and we wanted to create a resource that would help in very practical ways, not just in growing in your own leadership, but helping you lead your team to great success. If you have any questions throughout our time, I would love for you to send those questions into tyler@northlandschurch.com. When I get that feedback from you, or when I get a question from you, it really helps shape future episodes. We want to really speak into specifics of what you're currently facing and going through, so that it's helpful for exactly what you need at the exact right time. So again, send those questions in to tyler@northlandschurch.com. A quick recap from last week. We talked about establishing the win and how to build unity within your team. We talked about the importance of, as volunteers, as we're giving our time and our resources and our energy, unity is such an important aspect of what we do. And not just unity for unity's sake and building a great community, but having a clarity of what is the mission critical win here at Northlands. What is it that we are trying to do every single week, week in and week out, to impact the lives of people. So if you haven't listened to that episode, I'd encourage you to go back and check it out, and we'll go from there. This week, I am so passionate about this subject. It is one that I have found to be incredibly helpful, not just in leading on a team, but really in my own leadership journey. And we're going to be talking about building a culture of feedback. Today, I want to talk about how do we build a culture of feedback that is not just a space where your team can receive feedback, but that your team actually craves feedback. I don't know if you've ever been in a space like that where people are actually saying, "Hey, would you tell me how I can improve in my job?" And I believe that a culture like that can exist. And today, I want to talk about how we create that. Today, we're going to actually do two parts of this conversation. Today, we're just going to be talking about receiving feedback. How do we create a culture where receiving feedback is easy and again, wanted by the people on our team. And then next week, I want to talk about how do we give feedback in a life-giving way. Here's what I want to start with. Most people resist, and some would even say that they hate receiving feedback, because it's often a vulnerable experience that can feel like you are personally being questioned or even attacked. Oftentimes, giving feedback is not a positive experience either. We don't like the feeling of confrontation or coming across as critical. But here's what we know to be true about feedback. This is what I want to say. Feedback, it is the pathway to growth. To honestly put it this way, it's probably the number one tool for personal growth. In order to grow and to kind of break this ceiling of your current capacity for leadership, you have to be aware of your blind spots. And that's where feedback is such an important thing, that people can speak in a healthy, life-giving way, not to critique you, but to help you grow in your gifting and in your strengths. And so today I want to talk about how do we help our teams receive feedback from us so that we grow as individuals and therefore grow in our capacity as a team to be more effective and more impactful. Why does a culture of feedback matter? Here's what I would say to you. Feedback is actually happening whether you intentionally build a culture or you don't. If you just leave the team culture that you currently have, if you just leave it alone and you say, "I'm never going to give feedback to anyone ever again," feedback is going to happen regardless. When we do it intentionally, it creates a healthy and safe place for people to grow and be secure. When we don't do it intentionally, it's like letting weeds grow in your garden. They just continue to grow and grow and grow. And eventually it can actually manifest a toxic a workspace for people to be in. Here's what I mean by feedback is actually happening whether you do it intentionally or not. We get feedback everywhere. In every aspect of our life, feedback is continually coming into us about how we can improve or change. It's very common to find feedback. You are often getting rated, you're ranked, you're graded, you're invited, you're not invited, you're encouraged with positive comments, or you're discouraged with sarcastic remarks, people's body postures, if their arms are crossed, if they're leaning in. All of these things are feedback, whether people are doing it intentionally or not intentionally. You know, when you talk to somebody, you can tell when somebody kind of zones out of the conversation, right? You can see it on their face. They're not actually listening to you. They might just be smiling politely, but they're kind of looking past you. That's feedback for you. It's you're now questioning, okay, Am I not interesting? Why isn't this person giving me my time? So there's always feedback coming in to our lives. What I want to do is learn how to harness feedback in a way that is always life-giving, that we give it intentionally, we give it clearly, and we give it in such a way that when people receive feedback from us, they're not hurt by it, they can absorb it, they know how to handle it in a mature way. And so today I want to talk about how do we receive feedback. Next week we'll talk about how do we give it in a life-giving way. Today I want to talk about how do we take the critiques. How do we take feedback from people? And I want to set some ground rules of how to create that space of receiving feedback. So here's what I want to do. Let's talk about how we help our team crave feedback. I started with that and I said, it's not just something that we tolerate, but we can actually create an environment where people crave, hey, would you tell me how I can improve in this space that we're serving in together? So let's talk about this. How do we help our teams value feedback? We first start by telling them this, hey, feedback is the #1 tool for personal growth. This is honestly, it's a massive part of our discipleship process, growing people in their gifts. I tell people that are on my team, when we serve together on a team, this is a part of our discipleship, our spiritual maturing. God's given each one of us grace gifts. That's why we call our teams grace teams. He has graced you with a specific gift, and He's given it a unique style and flavor that is just unique to you. And so what we want to say is, hey, we don't want you to just stay put with your gifts. We want you to continually grow in your strength and continually grow in your gifting. And so we want to give opportunity for people to say, hey, do you want to grow spiritually? Do you want to grow personally in your life? Well, in order to do that, you need feedback. You need people to tell you, hey, there's a better way to do this, or hey, have you tried doing it this way, or hey, maybe next time go at it from this angle. Feedback helps people grow. And so the moment you tell people, hey, this isn't about critiquing you, this is about helping you grow in your strengths, it automatically brings a certain level or a wall kind of down for people. They're not as close to the problem. They're not, or I should say it maybe, they're not as walled up about receiving. They're saying, okay, they're just trying to help me grow. They're actually in it not to criticize me, but they want me to become better. Another reason that we talk about this is feedback. It leads not just to growth, but as I mentioned, it helps people see the blind spots or the dead ends. And this is what I would say. It's not only a growth mechanism, but it's also a security mechanism. We're not just we are not protecting people by not being honest. People actually get insecure when we aren't sure or we're not honest with them. So if I could say it this way, if I could reword it, feedback gives growth for us. When I give you feedback, it helps you grow in your strength. But when I don't give you feedback, or when I hold back truth from you, it actually creates an insecurity. In other words, it's like if somebody does something in front of me and I don't say anything to them, they're going to go away being like, was that not good enough? Nobody encourages them. Nobody says, was that the right thing? So they're left with questions. When we give feedback intentionally and in practical ways, people learn to trust us. And so it brings down another barrier for people. It goes, oh, I can be secure with this person. This person is not trying to hurt me. They actually want me to do well. And so it creates security. So feedback for us, it creates growth, personal growth, and it also creates security for people when they have feedback. So this is what we want to put in front of our team. Hey guys, hey, we're going to have a culture of feedback here. We want you to be able to receive feedback, and know part of receiving feedback, the reason we're giving feedback is because we want you to grow in your gifting and in your strength, and we want you to feel secure on this team. This is a safe space where we can speak into each other's life. Again, in order to build a culture of feedback, we have to continually look for opportunities to give honest, timely, and helpful feedback to people. So I want to talk about the rules of receiving feedback. It says that we like feedback on what we are doing right, but hate or resist feedback on what we are doing wrong. I've always wondered, why is that? Why is it that we don't mind the feedback on what we're doing right, but when it comes to something that we can improve on, we actually really feel uncomfortable? And I think it comes down to two major reasons why we don't like that. It comes out of a place of we have to be vulnerable with people, and also feels that sometimes it's a personal attack. Sometimes when we share with somebody or we do something in front of somebody, we use our strengths and it's not very good or we messed up. When somebody says, hey, you could probably improve, that's a very vulnerable space. I'm on the hosting team. If I can give an example this way, I'm on the hosting team. And so my team, we go up and we welcome everybody to Northlands. We're up on a stage. People are watching and our team is watching. And my team we've set up a space where we go, hey, I want you to watch me do this. And then when I come down from the stage, I want you to tell me how I could have done it better. That's a really vulnerable place to be in. If you're not used to that kind of feedback, it can be very vulnerable because people are actually picking at and going, hey, this area right here could have been done a little bit better. Next time, maybe slow down. Next time, speak up. Next time, use a different tone. And that can be a really vulnerable place to be in. And so just to be able to recognize, hey, people, when they receive feedback from you, they're either going to feel really vulnerable, and they can even feel a personal attack. So what I want to do is I want to talk about how do we help remove this barrier of vulnerability, that people can be vulnerable with us, and how do we also remove the barrier where people don't feel like they're being personally attacked when we tell them, hey, here's an area to improve in. So I want to look at that just for a moment. That feeling of personal attack and vulnerability. Let's take personal attack for a moment. I totally ripped this element off from Craig Groeschel at Life Church. He did a great podcast on feedback specifically, and one of the things that he said specifically about receiving feedback was their team, what we do is we separate the do from the who. The do from the who. When we give feedback, what we want to tell our teams right out of the gate, you're going to have a meeting with your team and say, hey guys, we're going to build a culture of feedback. We always want to improve. We always want to become better. We want to grow in our strengths and our gifts. And so we're going to build a culture of feedback. And then you're going to tell them this. The first thing that we're going to do to make sure that we're all secure, we're going to make sure that we're always separating the do from the who. We are not critiquing somebody's identity. We are simply critiquing their actions and performance. When you are receiving feedback from somebody, continually tell yourself, it's the do, not the who. It's the do, not the who. If it feels like a personal attack, ask yourself, are they saying something about my character? Because that's a personal attack. Or are they simply saying, I can improve in this area of service? That's not you. That's a performance. That's not who you are. You are not, the thing that you are functioning on your team or at work, that is not who you are. That is just something that you do. And so when people are critiquing that, imagine this with me. Imagine as if you're taking your position, the thing that you serve in, and you're just putting it on a table, and you're taking a step back. And you're going to say, you know what? I'm going to allow them to critique that performance and those actions. That is not who I am. I'm over here. They're not attacking me. They're attacking how can we do it better. And then what you're able to do is you're able to ask those qualifying questions of going, okay, so let me just make sure I heard this correctly. I did it this way, so next time I should maybe come at it from this angle. And now you're having this really great conversation. Again, not about you, but about the task at hand. Remember, separating the do from the who. And what that does is it pulls down that barrier of people feeling like, oh, I'm being personally attacked. It's not easy. It is something that's going to have to be learned. And so if you feel like people, when you give them feedback, you feel like they're getting tense and that they're feeling that kind of personal attack, just remind them, hey, I want you to know you're a phenomenal individual. You're so called to be in this space. This is not against you. We're just creating a standard of how we perform here, and we're talking about that specifically. We're, again, separating the do from the who. I want to talk about vulnerability for a moment. And here's what I would say. When people are giving you feedback and you're receiving feedback, it is a very vulnerable place. But if I could just give us a thought, I would rather be vulnerable with a team I trust rather than being left vulnerable to my blind spots that I can't trust. I want to say that again. That's a very important thought. Tell yourself this again and again. It's a vulnerable place when people are critiquing you and feeling insecure, and man, you're kind of put up on a pedestal and people are just kind of making remarks about how you could do better. It's vulnerable, but I want to say this. If we do our job of creating a culture of feedback that is safe, where the thing that we are focused on when it comes to feedback is we want people to grow and we want people to feel secure. They are in a safe and trusted place. And here's the thought again. I would rather be vulnerable with a team I trust rather than being left vulnerable to my blind spots that I cannot trust. You can't trust your blind spots. That is by definition why they are called blind spots. You'll never see them coming. You're not sure where you're weak. Everybody has a certain level of emotional intelligence, but nobody has so much emotional intelligence that they don't need to receive feedback at some point in time. You cannot see your blind spots. And so to be able to receive from people, remind yourself, these are people that are for me, not against me. They are not criticizing me. They are just talking about my performance and action, which is not my identity. This is a safe place. This is a secure place. I can receive from them. They are my friends, and I am trusting them with my work. And all they want to do is see me grow in my strengths and be better. And so therefore I can feel security. Vulnerability is something that continues to dim out of the distance as you become more and more and more secure in your calling. And the way you become more secure is you trust your team, not your blind spots. So, how to receive feedback in a very helpful manner. Here's two qualifying statements that I want to lay before us for a moment. So how do we receive feedback in a helpful manner? Some people naturally have a gift of encouragement, and when they give feedback, even feedback on sensitive areas, they do it with such a grace that it's easy to receive from them. Now, people are growing in their ability to give feedback in a healthy way. Again, we'll talk about this next week. But what do we do when we receive feedback we really disagree with, or we feel that personal attack defense mechanism raising up in us? We feel like, man, they could have said that more graciously. They were very harsh with me. The timing was very poor. It's easy to receive. When people have the gift of encouragement, they can give feedback in a way that is so effortlessly. It's a gift to have people like that on your team. But not everybody is there yet. They're growing in their ability to give feedback. So what do you do when you get feedback in a way that's really just clunky and doesn't feel very helpful? What do you need to do? So here's what I would say. Ask for clarifying questions. Asking a question like, do you have any feedback for me? It's a terrible question because then people can pick at 1,000 different things. Do you have any feedback for me? It could be about what you're wearing, your haircut, the performance perhaps, or your choice in music, or that's not a very helpful question. A general question will rarely lead to specific answers. So general questions rarely leading to specific feedback. We need to do this. You're going to hear some things you don't like, and when you hear those things that you don't like, or it's done in a clunky way, when that happens, don't get defensive. Instead, train yourself to think of questions like this. Hey, tell me more about what you're talking about. You said this. Can you just tell me a little bit more? Can you elaborate? Can you help me understand what you're saying? Could you be more specific? Everybody gets really tense in a moment of critiquing, right? Everybody in the room is like, oh, I can't believe that person, was giving a critique, and so everybody gets really tense. Be calm, and if you disagree with it, say, okay, hey, I'm trying to better understand what it is that you're saying. Can you help me understand? Be more specific. Are you referring to a specific example of today with my work or performance? Is there something better I should be doing in the future? Ask for clarifying but specific questions, and that'll give people, even the most clunky of us who give feedback kind of just off the cuff, it'll help clarify what they need to be speaking into. The second thing that I want to bring to mind is create an opportunity for feedback sessions with your team. In a very practical example that I can give you, on a Sunday morning, the entire production team, from the speaker who's delivering the sermon, to the producers and the sound engineers, to the musicians, all of us get together at the very beginning of the day, and we run through the entire service. And that's so we all have a real clarity of this is the standard, this is what we're trying to accomplish and do. And then after the first service, we all go into a back room, into the Hall of Champions, and we then give each other feedback on how we could improve from the first service to the second service. And then after that week, on a Wednesday afternoon, some of the staff that are here, we go through the next week's service that's coming up, but we also look back and go, hey, how was the overall program? Do we need to change things up? So we're always looking for pockets and moments to give feedback. I would challenge you, especially as the Grace Team leader, create an environment, not just where feedback is well received, but create opportunities for feedback to be given. Some companies, they only give 90-day evaluations, or they give an end of the year evaluation. Twice a year is not enough for people to improve on their feedback. If feedback is done the right way, see people use the end of the year evaluations as an excuse to nitpick on their employees. If you create a culture of continual feedback, then people have the ability to make changes to their performance throughout the year and continually always grow. We're creating a culture of feedback because we want to see people transformed in the gift that God has put in them. We're not doing it to critique them and to hurt them, so we're not going to do 90-day evaluations. We're going to look for moments as we're serving together. Maybe it's in between services. Hey guys, let's huddle up. The first service was great. Here's a couple things that we probably need to change and do better in. Hey, can we make sure to do this or to do that? And once you've created that safe space, people know to expect it. That craving feedback, I can tell you the team that is on our production and speaking, we're so used to critiquing feedback now that it doesn't come across as personal attacks. It's very black and white. It's almost non-emotional. Even when people critique my stuff and say, hey Tyler, maybe do it better this way, or have you tried this, or to do that, it's because we've separated the do from the who, and we're just trying to make the first service even better in the second. And so look for opportunities to not just create a culture of feedback, but moments, pockets of times where you can gather your team together and specifically go after ways that you can do better the next time. Here's some takeaway questions and we're done. 3 questions that I want to lay before us. Number 1, in what areas of your leadership could you use helpful feedback? I know we have blind spots, so maybe that's a difficult question for you, but maybe asking areas that you're like, in this area, this isn't my strongest suit. I would love to get better in it. So I want to ask some people that I trust right now to speak into it. Again, remember, specific questions. How can I improve in this area specifically? And then give that to a trusted person or a couple trusted people to speak in and bring life. And you'll be amazed at how much you can grow in those areas. Number 2. I kind of just touched on it, but here's number 2. Who are 3 people you could enlist to help develop your ability to improve? Pick out some people, whether they're on your team. They don't have to be leaders. People who are very kind. Look for those encouragers, those who are gracious in encouragement. Those are great people to tap into on feedback. I'll give shout outs to people. Tom Borsick, if you're watching, man, one of the best guys I know. I'm constantly going to him. Greg is the exact same. Liz Chansey. These are people that I constantly go to and say, hey, how can I improve? Was that clear? Can I do better here? Because they are incredibly gracious in their feedback to me. Find people that are around you, and I'm telling you, you will grow as an individual and as a leader when you have people that are constantly speaking to you from the outside. Number 3, what are 3 specific questions you could ask your team to help you grow? So let me say that again. What are 3 specific questions you could ask for your team to help you grow? So remember, giving them specific, don't say, hey guys, I'm trying to be a better leader. Can you tell me how I can be better? That's a general question, and they're just gonna go after 1,000 different things. But if you said, hey, I'm really trying to grow as a leader, and I would encourage you to grow as a leader, here's 3 things that I would ask of you. If you see these things, or if you can point these things out to me, I would really appreciate your feedback, because then it'll tell you really clearly where you need to improve and how you need to do it. With that, I'm so excited for the next week's episode as we talk about giving feedback. Receiving feedback can be vulnerable and insecure, but giving feedback needs to be done really, really well, like a surgeon with a scalpel, very delicate and in a precision. And so next week, I'm looking forward to talking more about that. If you have any questions at all, again, Tyler@northlandschurch.com. I'd love to check out those questions, and that'll help us form future podcasts. But with that, have a phenomenal week, and thank you for leading well.